Okay, hello and welcome everybody. This is Behind the Line, the Rockwell Collection Artist Talk. I'm Kahmeela Adams. I will be your host this evening, facilitating the conversation between these two extraordinary and creative women. If you want to know more about who I am and why I'm doing this, you can just go to RuggedAngel.com. I'm a podcaster, I do photography, I'm also a video editor, yeah, so and I'm a freelance writer, so I guess I've been offering up my opinion for a while for the past 3 years. So that's why I'm here doing this. So we've got Contemporary Craft Executive Director Rachel Rearick and Knotzland founder Nisha Blackwell. I will let you two briefly introduce yourselves.
Nisha, would you like to go first?
Hi, everyone. I'm Nisha Blackwell, founder and CEO and designer in Knotzland Bow Ties. We make handmade bow ties and accessories out of repurposed and reclaimed fabrics and materials. And I'm really happy and excited to be here.
And Rachel?
I am Rachel Rearick, the somewhat new executive director at Contemporary Craft. I feel like it's getting harder to say that, time's going on. So I've been here for about 9 months now, and we are, for anyone that doesn't know that might have joined, we have exhibitions, studio spaces, and a store. So that's where a lot of this conversation comes in tonight with Nisha and the retail space.
So these two are launching an exclusive product line together called the Rockwell line. And tonight we're going to get the inside scoop on how that came to be. And I believe a sneak peek at the final collection, which you may have noticed that was kind of hanging out behind Nisha. And we'll get more into that. The Rockwell line is a collection of handmade bow ties and lavaliers that will premiere at the Contemporary Crafts annual fundraiser Out of Hand on April 9th. What makes this work unique is that all of the fabric for the collection was hand printed by Rachel and then reimagined and turned into a series of wearable artwork by Nisha and her creative team. And you, the audience, if you guys feel like you have any questions that come up while we're chatting, you guys, I'm sure this is the first and it won't be the last virtual event you've attended. Throw your questions in the chat and we'll get to them at the end, hopefully. So first of all right, let's figure out how you two met. How did your paths cross? How did Nisha and Rachel come to be?
I'm gonna let Rachel take this because she does a way better job at explaining this.
So my first memory, we were just going back and forth about which memory is the first memory. My first memory of Nisha is actually from Assemble, which is a maker space primarily for youth in the Garfield neighborhood. And I used to volunteer in the Girls Make It project at Assemble. And one week, Nisha was the guest artist at Girls Make It Night and came and taught all of the students how to make bow ties, and all of the youth got to make their own bow tie. And it was really fascinating to me just to hear the story that Nisha told about her process and her practice and how she came to it. And even more so, like how quickly the kids just like responded to that and how excited they were to be involved and be making something with her. So that's my first memory, at least.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we were playing the newlywed game right now, it's like, and so Nisha, how does that add up to your first memory?
No, it does. It really does add up. But interestingly enough, I remember being invited by Rachel. Like I remember the Assemble story very vaguely, probably because I was like super just laser focused, which I do when I get into that zone. But I remember having, when Rachel was at Contemporary Craft, the first time, she invited me to be a part of the Crafts and Drafts and do a workshop with, I think it was just more of an adult class on making bow ties. And I just remember being invited into the space in a welcoming kind of way. I had never been to Contemporary Craft, and that really lasted and left a lasting imprinted memory on just who I was and just being in that space and seeing other craft artists. It was my first time seeing that as like a career and a profession. I remember being exposed to visual arts and different art forms, but the craft side was definitely in that experience with craft and drafts.
Okay, and so yes, you have turned this into a full-fledged career profession. Like this has been like an amazing ride for you from what I can see on the outside, just from like all the accolades you've been getting. And most recently, and most most timely, from what I've been seeing on the Instagram, is that you, my friend, had the pleasure of creating a bow tie for one Sir Danny the Glover to wear at the Oscars this year.
Unbelievable opportunity. That in the midst of developing this collection, which this collection was one of the most exciting things I had going on. It still is one of the most exciting things that I have going on, but to pile that in with just all, it was just overwhelming. It still is surreal and one of those things that I'm processing and unpacking, but it was an incredible, I still can't believe it, to be honest.
Dude, I mean, I feel like that's like a business card right there. You just kind of take the photo of Danny wearing the bow tie and just like, you have any questions?
That's it. It's like legendary.
That's your resume. That's like your CV. That's just everything at this point.
Yeah, and it put us, we've been intentional about being seen as, a piece of wearable art.
Right.
Textiles are often not, don't get their cred for being, these expressive pieces of adornment. And to see him on full display, receiving one of the greatest honors of his career, wearing a Knotzland bow tie, and that being the statement, right? And that's what we hope to really encourage people, is like, you can express yourself. I mean, you don't have to be winning an Oscar to be able to express yourself in wearing pieces of wearable art.
Well, let's get a little bit more into like your creative development in doing this. Like, that's it. Not everyone takes a look at textiles and takes a look at bow ties and things of that nature as art. And you have like made this a great new transition as to where now that yes, I am wearing, like, you're wearing a piece of art, and it's more than just like a little splash of color or whatnot. It's more than a statement.
Yeah. And, I entered it from a very business heavy background. I went to an accelerator program. It was very tech focused. So I was like getting sort of indoctrinated into the business world from a tech side, where it was like, oh, you have to scale fast and figure out how you're going to make millions of dollars and do this in a big way. And it took me at least like 3 or 4 years to understand that, that's not how, sustainable slow fashion works. And we are going against the current and trying to be that while also being ethical. We wanted to be sure that we can build slowly and thoughtfully. And so the past couple years, we've just been focused on building slowly and thoughtfully and intentionally, so that like our people are taken care of, and we're knowing where our products come from and how well they're made. And now we have this like beautiful avenue in the wedding scene that has given us. Hello.
That's actually, I think that's my nephew.
Hi.
Hi.
Jesus.
That's awesome. But we have this avenue in the wedding space that has given us this sustainable sort of source of revenue, where now we can understand like, oh, we have an income side of the business that makes sense. We can still do the things that are very thoughtful, very intentional for couples. And now it made room for us to focus on doing more artful things and shining in that way that we've kind of put away and subdued for so long, because we had to try to figure out how to participate in the marketplace, in the commerce.
Right, and it shows in like every piece that I've seen that you have made, that you and your team have made. Like there's that extra special touch of love and care and dedication that you put into it. It's not just like this mass-produced piece of just mass-produced apparel. that folks
Yeah.
are wearing. It's like each one is a statement piece and it's a piece of artwork. And so obviously, you know, you've got your own artistry that's going along, and we've got Rachel, who's an abstract artist, but also you're like more into like the social practice of trying to bring people together, which is our origin story. Rachel, like you're like one of the best, I don't want to say hype man, but hype people here in Pittsburgh, because like you're really good at just like recognizing people's, you know, talents and skills and like their hypes, and like knowing, okay, you should totally talk to this person. And then, you know, you came to me and spotlighted me in your Pittsburgh Women Make It series that you were doing. But yeah, so let's talk about you. Like what let's talk about you and your abstract art.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And it's interesting you say that, because for me, the art is one piece of this, but it's kind of just like the vehicle to the larger like work that we're doing. Because yeah, my practice really is about the connections and the people and bringing kind of folks together, which so I think my role as the ED at Contemporary Craft is more of what informs like this relationship, because like Nisha is a total force. Like I've always wanted to partner with Nisha, but there's never been an organic reason or a connection to make of like my art and her practice. And beyond that, it's really about creating spaces that are supporting artists, which is what Contemporary Craft is and has been from the beginning. Like that's why Betty Rockwell Raphael created, you know, the place. So like I to Nisha's point was like looking around as we're looking at who we are and what we have, and looking at our retail space and realizing that we have tons of really fantastic work, but we don't have a lot of wearable adornment that's fabric or fashion or garment based. So then it was this organic, oh, like this is the moment where Nisha and I make sense in a partnership. And so I am a printmaker. I do make abstract monoprints, which basically for me, everything that I print is different. I don't really run editions. And I don't normally print on fabric. So like I have, but it's not my primary practice. I print on paper. So this was really challenging to think about how to make prints in a way that I knew they would be deconstructed, or I knew that they would be utilized very differently from the way I was leaving them. So that like as an artist practice, that was really interesting to me to figure out how to give something to Nisha that would be useful, but also not get attached to it in a way that I had any expectation of what would happen to it.
Okay, so that was your aha moment of wanting to bring more fashion into the fold at Contemporary Craft, and you're like, okay, so now I know who I can work with. So who was that? So what was that moment of, okay, what was the wooing process?
Well, I could say that, you know, one of the first things that Rachel did when she, you know, got settled, I don't even know if she was fully settled in her role at Contemporary Craft, was she reached out, and it wasn't necessarily about a collaboration or about anything. It was just like, I want to hear, you know, what your thoughts are and how we can, you know, build this space and build out, you know, inclusivity and make you feel welcomed in this space. And so that's kind of the organic nature in which this also came about, and saying, I want to also support your craft and your growth, and how do we do that and support Knotzland? So her, in just being so welcoming and so open, created that avenue for this organic, like, oh, wait, this is actually a good fit too, where now we can carry some of the textiles. And I never saw our things being carried in Contemporary Craft because I didn't see anything traditionally like textile and sculptural, and I don't know what that would even be in the retail shop. And so I thought that was just like extremely just a bold and powerful move. I've already respected Rachel beyond this, and similar to the Women's Make It, she's always looped me into the fold and been a really great friend and community collaborator in that way. And so it was expected, but it was also respected and appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, I thank you. I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think that's the other like main point of this is also like, you know, all joking or all like everything else aside, like I totally respect Nisha. I appreciate what an entrepreneur and what a like strong, savvy businesswoman she is, and that she has created a space that like undeniably, if you want a bow tie and you live in Pittsburgh, you're gonna call Nisha, right? But like as the crafts organization in Pittsburgh, to me, there was a little bit of like, oh, how do we support this artist who's working in this medium? How do we make sure that this person is like being supported by the field so that they're not like out there like pushing all of that on their own, that like we can help, like push. And not that Nisha needs help pushing, she's like the greatest marketer in the world, but like really, I'm just saying, like, how do we as a field support the materiality of this work and really bring somebody into the fold that like we would benefit from having art in our community too.
Yeah, a lot of creatives and artists and makers, they all, yes, Nisha is doing the thing. Like she is absolutely just like, you're hitting all the marks, and and you've been at this for a long time. But it's also it's great to know that there are people and organizations and people, the head of organizations that are out there willing to help and support and to like just to get the word out. And a lot of times, sometimes you just need a share on social media for somebody to just kind of help push you over that edge, or just as an extra space or your name underneath another institution's or within like an institution's world, just so just to kind of get to a different audience.
Mm-hmm.
And and I think this collaboration is a great idea, and I'm excited to dive a little bit deeper into that. It's called the Rockwell Collection. First of all, I, not being the fashionista as as you are, Nisha, I did not know what a lavalier was until we started chatting about this. I had to Google it. I didn't want but if you could explain to our audience, those who may not be as familiar with the lavalier, like what is it and why is it?
So the lavalier is just it's a product that has been, when we talk about craft and we talk about developing, even just like my own personal practice and innovating for Knotzland, right? And so that is a product that I've been working on for the past year, like a little bit over a year, where I just wanted to, it really came out of this idea of, we make bow ties, right? We make a lot of bow ties. People love bow ties. Not every woman sees herself in a bow tie. And I have identified with that too, because people would always say, Nisha, you make bow ties, but you don't always wear bow ties. And why don't you always have bow ties on? Like, you are your biggest, like, if you wore bow ties, you would sell more bow ties. And I'm like, yeah, it's cool and all, but like, I just like making them. And I like, creating and designing bow ties that I like to see in the world. And it wasn't until one day a light bulb went off and said, but Nisha, you're a designer. Why don't you design a bow tie that you actually want to wear? And so I started kind of like tinkering around, and again, going back to taking my own practice a little bit more serious and making and carving out space for me to continue to design and innovate. The lavalier came about, and we released a small collection in November of last year. Then we released another small collection, and they've just kind of continuously been really, really popular. And it's one of those things that's still developing. So when this collection came about, and so the name of the lavalier is interesting too, because when I was thinking about like what to call these long bow tie situations, I came upon the lavalier. I love French, and I studied it very, very, very lightly in high school, but I still love and appreciate it. And when I was doing research on like you know, a pussy boat or like a lumpy tie. And like this, I stumbled upon this idea of this lavalier and I was like, oh, okay. And then it had like some of the definitions said like, oh, there's a pendant or a jewel on it. I was like, oh, that's exactly what we're doing. All right. So we're making lavaliers now. So that's really how the name came about. And this collection was really cool because it was an opportunity. The lavaliers are still very new. And so I had to take this new concept and design around this beautiful work that Rachel had printed and feel like I was doing the prints and bringing the prints to life in a meaningful way, and also adding these little touches and details, and then the brooches. So there's a lot of different layers to the lavaliers, and specifically these lavaliers that I'm just so excited about.
Right on. And Rachel, when you were printing the fabrics and making the textiles and whatnot, was there a specific theme that you were going with, or a certain inspiration that you had?
So I wouldn't say there was a theme, but I was really interested in how do we bring our brands together in a way that's like supporting one another, but not like throwing logos or like things that like not so obvious. And
you're not like, you don't want it like the double, was it like the golden arches with a crown on top? Like,
yeah. So I love when you walk into Knotzland, there's like this beautiful deep blue statement wall that Nisha has her logo on. And it just like, there's just something about that color and like the sense of like excitement but calmness. It's like this, it's just a really gorgeous color of blue. And then our brand colors at Contemporary Craft are tangerine and coral. It's like an orange and a pink. And at first, I mean, let's full disclosure here, right? Like the first run that I did was like really pink and really orange, and I was like, I don't know if that's a lot for a bow tie. So like we went through some iterations, but for me, yeah, it was really about how do we start bringing our colors and our brands together in kind of a subliminal way. And then Nisha got in some additional fabric after we started that was black and gray, and the pink just looked so beautiful on it that then it evolved again to kind of like we pulled out a little bit of the blue and went a little more into the pink with the blacks and the grays. So yeah, there's not like an obvious theme, but just also more like a minimalist abstract like shapes, and some of that kind of resonates and ties back to, since we're launching this at Out of Hand, they're not shapes directly taken from our invitation, but they kind of have like a relationship with the whole vibe of the night. So
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like you're going with vibes, man. Like that's what it's all about. Like, it's like I didn't have a theme, I had vibes that I was with. And speaking of vibes, like the name, the Rockwell line, like I know it has a for real meaning, but me not knowing that, I knew it wasn't this, but what my mind went to was Rockwell from the 80s, the one hit wonder, Somebody's Watching Me. But also it's just kind of a hard name to begin with, like the Rockwell line, that's just a hard name. But please explain what the real meaning behind it is.
Okay, I can start, but Nisha, I think, also has some insight on that too. So Nisha had said, do I have any names in mind? And I think I threw out like 3 or 4, secretly kind of hoping that she would settle on Rockwell. Because the choice was totally hers of what we're going to call it from there. But for me, where Rockwell is coming from is that our founder is Betty Rockwell Raphael. And just like, similar to like how much respect I have for Nisha, and in a way Nisha has like been a mentor to me in terms of like as I think about business and I think about brand and I think about presentation, literally every day that I come into work there's something about Betty Rockwell Raphael that I feel like I wanted to do this woman justice, like with the work that we do. I want to carry on that legacy in a way that continues to really bring true to like who she was. So for people that don't know, she was really just like a visionary and did groundbreaking work, especially with this gallery called Outlines. And it kind of put a real footprint on the art world to that then show craft and be one of the first craft institutions. I just felt like that the potential to have it be named that is kind of like the tenacity and the strength and the power of a woman, and really business and partnership and supporting one another and bringing things through. But then I know Nisha also like watched Outlines documentaries, and so I'm curious why it was for you the one that you settled on.
So, when you threw the names in the chat, I was like, oh, I don't know how. I don't know what to do with it. And honestly, I hadn't, I knew that the founder of Contemporary Craft was a woman, but full transparency, I didn't know her full name or her story. So I was just like, oh, okay, these are 3 people. Okay. So I started doing research, which was helpful for me because I was somewhere in the middle of the collection and I was, designing and putting some touches on. And so it was a perfect time to talk about this naming because it made me to go and do some digging and some research. And I did watch the documentary, the Tracing Outlines documentary. And I could not believe that this woman was so fierce and such a pioneer before her time. I resonated so deeply with her story, just having a space and building a space from scratch and collaborating with artists. And so I began to really channel that in the finishing of the collection. I was like, wow, this woman is a powerhouse. And now I want to I'm even more motivated. I already was motivated, but I was like, I'm even more motivated to do her justice. And if we're going to name this, yes, let's definitely name this after her. And let's kind of do it that justice. And it's interesting because right after I watched her documentary, I watched a couple of the Warhol Diaries, and there was an episode where that really resonated with me. And I thought I knew a lot about Warhol, but the moment I watched that, I was just like, oh my goodness, this is just layers upon layers. But each time I revisit some of Warhol's work, it reminds me of a different side of him that I connect with. And the piece that connected me with this collection was this idea of business as art, and him kind of framing that and saying they're like, oh, how are you such a good businessman? And he's like, I look at it as sort of an art form. And so I'm like, wow, these worlds are sort of coming together in this way. And I felt extremely, extremely moved to name it the Rockwell line in that moment. It was just this epiphany, aha moment for me.
That's amazing. Okay, well, can we take a closer look at some of the pieces?
Okay, hopefully this thing stays together because I put it together. So Rachel, can everyone see these?
Mm-hmm.
So what Rachel did was she printed on these sort of yardage of fabric, right? And interestingly enough, I remember us having a conversation about this one. This is a piece, this is vegan leather that it came from a manufacturer in New Jersey. And this is the reverse of that same fabric. So these are the same exact fabric. One is just flipped on the other side. And I remember Rachel and I having a conversation and just randomly just saying oh yeah, whatever side works best. And the surprise element of how the prints came off on this particular side just was incredible.
That's amazing.
And
oh, those are so dope.
really, really, really cool. I'm afraid that Zoom is not doing.
I know, right? I'm sure they just pop
They're just incredible.
Well, one of the things that I love about them that you can't really catch on camera, but then, and I haven't actually seen the full collection yet, but I know some of them, Nisha, you went back in with thread that was I think pink or orange. which gives it like an added kind of like pop.
Yeah, so this one has some of the pink outline.
Oh, I can see a little bit of that. Wow.
Yeah.
That is just amazing design as well as craftsmanship. Just the fact of, I mean, and those are beautiful. Those are absolutely beautiful.
Thank
And
you.
well done. Like I am impressed. And so and these will be on full display in person. You can go to the Contemporary Crafts annual fundraiser Out of Hand on April 9th to see those.
Yes.
And after that, they're going to be in the Contemporary Crafts gift shop.
Mhm.
So-
Yeah, they'll be in our store, and we'll have them online as well following April 9th, you know, if they don't all sell that night.
Right,
So
yeah, they're probably,
that's
well, I
what
mean,
we
so
do.
I suggest everybody just come out there in person on April 9th and go get yours because
Because usually
Yeah.
we do like limited or small batch lines, right? So I think
So
there's
they're
not.
all, the thing about this collection is that they're all different and they're all one of a kind and they're all extremely limited, even down to the brooches. I was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to source. I fell in love with this vintage Sarah Coventry pen. And because the circles and the connection with the pink rhinestones, I was like, I have to have them. So I went to like a bazillion different people on eBay and sourced these like at least like 6 or 7 of the brooches. And I was able to get them and put them on. So even those will be, once the collection is done, if we're able to remake them in colors, it won't be like the same design.
so no two are exactly the same.
No two are exactly the same at all.
Right on. And so you just mentioned like your process of finding the jewels and the brooches and whatnot. What is it? Did you found brooches, you took them apart and just kind of like repurposed pieces of it?
Interestingly enough, that's one of the most favorite things about the lavaliers is the brooch. Like the lavalier in itself is like this sort of like sculptural accessory, if you will. But the moment you add a brooch, it kind of just gives it this pop and this elegance.
It's like this, yeah, this regal
Yeah.
regality about it. It's just like automatic. You just put a brooch on, it's just like I have arrived.
And for a while, brooches weren't as popular. And so people get really excited about the fact that these are removable. So if you wanted to put your own brooch on there, if you found a cool brooch that fits really
And also
well.
from day to night.
Yes, yes. So that's the cool part about the brooches. It's like, yeah, they're sourced and they're pieces of wearable art, but the brooches can actually be swapped out.
That's awesome. Okay, just a reminder, folks, if you have any questions, please throw them in the chat. We are, we're coming a little bit close to the end here, but we're not done yet because I asked these two to each pick out their top 3 favorite songs. And I know that is a bold question to ask anybody. I could not tell you, it's because it depends upon so many different things. Like, so we'll just say right now, on Thursday, March 31st at 7:38 p.m. What are your top 3 favorite songs? We'll start with Rachel.
This is not easy, right? I'm not gonna lie. So these are, to your point, my songs are also like the daily vibe, right? How am I feeling? What's going on? Except one of them. One is my all-time, like, it's the vibe. It's like the legacy vibe. And that is Higher Love by Whitney Houston. I start almost every single day. I mean, my wife, Katie, is probably like, can we get another song? Because every morning it's on, I'm singing, like, it's happening. I used to, drive, like commute, and I would joke that if you see me on the parkway and I'm singing at the top of my lungs, it's Whitney Houston. So that's
amazing.
Constant.
That's great.
But then the other 2 are kind of more like current, which is just Heaven Is Here by Florence and the Machine. And then the other one is Sweetest Thing by Almond Brown. And there's just something about that song, especially now that I have a daughter, like I just like, it changed my life.
Choked up.
Just like yeah, so that's like the, oh my gosh, this most perfect human is the sweetest thing.
It's amazing how certain songs take on just like a whole new meaning when you have a child, and it's like all of a sudden you're just like crying, and it's like, oh my God, I didn't know you two was so in touch with my feelings. So
Yeah, that's that song.
Nisha.
Well, yeah, for me, again, it's a vibe. I have way too many favorite songs. I realize that. It depends if what category we're talking,
I
what
know. Like
day.
I spend way too much time making playlists, like on
Hey,
so,
and you have to be like really, I don't play about my playlist.
right, for real.
So to answer this, I went to my recents.
Right.
I was like, okay, I can't go to a playlist because then I'll just go down.
It's like, so what I've come up with is my 3 favorite playlists.
Right, right. So I went to my recents and to like my most played. And the top one is actually I Just Want to Praise You by Maurette Brown Clark. I've been in a very grateful mood.
That's
and
awesome.
you know, I connect with my spirituality very often. And so I just blast that. I will blast me some gospel music any day.
When the spirit hits, it hits.
Especially on the good days.
Right.
And Until You Come Back to Me by Mickey Howard. I just actually reconnected with that song. I hadn't listened to it for a couple years, and now it's just like another one of those like summertime. I feel like it's the summertime and it's just good vibes. And A Sunday Kind of Love. I love jazz, and this Etta James Sunday Kind of Love is just one of my top favorites. I can just listen to that all the time.
I love that these are all kind of like they kind of representative. Both of yours, it represents just like kind of we touch at all genres, and I guess that also it also kind of reflects in the artwork as well, and what you in the line that you've done here. It just kind of, I feel like, and I haven't seen them in person yet, but they seem like they're all pretty much that there's something there for just about everybody who is willing to rock a lavalier. You will find one that connects with you and your spirit and whatever vibe you're trying to make. Okay, so all right, are we getting no questions yet? Okay. I see. All right.
A lot to take in.
What's that?
A lot to take in.
It is a lot to take in. Let's get into what is on the horizon for Knotzland. Is there anything else that you've got coming up that, not that you haven't been working hard all this time, and that I feel like you're just now kind of coming up for air after this big old project.
Yeah.
But, is there anything else that we should know about to look for?
We've got this project, and we've got a cool project that has been happening also, pre-Oscars. This Earth Day fashion show. We're doing like a piece, and we're putting a piece in there, and it's our first year participating in that. So that's on the horizon, and it was cool working on the 2 projects sort of parallel with one another because they're so different. And I am just in a space where I am fully grateful to be able to express my creativity in different ways and have the space and the support to do that. The Rockwell line, I remember just laying out the piece. It took me a very, very, very long time to even cut any of them because I was very particular. And I believe I'm just going to bring some of my like sketches and behind the scenes things to show how I came about developing the line, because there were so many different combinations and I get overloaded sometimes. So there were like weeks where I couldn't even look at the collection because I'm like, okay, I need to just take a break and process like what I really want to communicate through these and the details that I want to add and not become overwhelming. I'm still in that process. They may look entirely different, but no, I'm joking. But earlier when Rachel was talking about, her vibe and her minimalist aesthetic, when I laid them out, I immediately got this like mid-century kind of vibe. And I don't know why, because you've never said that, Rachel. You've never explicitly say like, these are, hinting at a mid-century thing, but I felt that in these as well. And I just wanted to kind of put that out there and say how cool that was to like they don't necessarily read that now, but like in their full pieces, I felt this like element of cool mid-century.
I could see that. Is
Yeah.
that something that you had subliminally going on, Rachel?
Well, it's funny that you say that because it wasn't intentional, but I had just come out of a year residency-ish type program with Falling Water. So we did that. You did a residency, then you developed a line for the Falling Water store that became exclusive. And I had made a series of prints, and they definitely had like a very mid-century kind of feel to it. So
Yeah.
maybe that just kind of was carrying through.
Like the residue.
That's what I love about, like being an artist and your practice, though, that sometimes you like pick up things along the way that you don't even realize that you pick up in terms of your aesthetic, and it sticks. So I also kind of appreciate that recognition, because it's like, oh, that's something for me in terms of my artist practice to think about. Like, am I holding on to that? I don't know.
Maybe take it for a ride, see how long that goes. Right, yeah, not a bad thing at all. When did you all start working on this together? When was the
December?
conception?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
December, yeah, and the prints started in January.
Oh wow, really? That's a pretty quick turnaround, I would say.
It feels like it was a while, but it really was quick. But it's also interesting because like that was part of the dynamic, because I do like to give myself like time to like process and in between, but I knew that I didn't have that much time.
Right, yeah. Was the end goal always to be for the fundraiser? Okay.
Yeah, I think we had started, to the point of the first conversation, I think we met in like October, and we started just like, what is this gonna look like? How do we work together? And then December, it really kind of clicked like, oh, that's how. And then I was like, I gotta print. Like, I need to make some prints.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I was like, I gotta sew, but I also have to like figure out where the placement is. And wait, I can't cut these, because if I cut them, then that's it.
That sounds really stressful, just in general.
I'm used to working with like patterns, right? Like just repeat patterns. So placement isn't as much of a thing in those as it isn't, a piece like this. So that was an interesting and cool challenge, and definitely sharpened my skills in pattern placement and thinking about like scale and things like that.
Were there any throwaways or was each one perfection that you?
There were some redos, a couple of redos. And that's why I say I still have about like maybe 3 that I have to do, but I have this tradition that comes from my trade show days and my pop-up days. Like there's always like an idea that pops up like the day before or 2 days before. And I just kind of crank it out and make it. And that's usually the first thing that sells. So that's my
So you just kind of like wait, you hold off finishing until completion until like a couple days before.
Yeah, just like that's what's missing. Gotcha.
And I can't wait to find out which one that is. Because that'll be very interesting to find out. If you've got like you're undefeated with this tactic.
I know. The pressure's on.
Rachel, do you have anything coming up in your personal practice or with contemporary craft that we should be on the lookout for?
Personal practice is kind of on the back burner for a minute. It was a busy year with that. But contemporary craft, we have a lot of stuff coming up. Of course, Out of Hand is coming up. And then we work on a number of exhibitions at a time in terms of the stages of planning, installing, packing, traveling, etc. So we have the Fiber Art International followed by the Raphael Prize in Glass. And then we just started working on the third, which is an exhibition on gender, and really excited about the work and how that's coming together. And so we're doing all those things. And then we actually are also about to start our residency with Ternay in 2 weeks. So yeah, we're just keeping it moving.
That's
over here.
exciting. Yeah, and you're coming up on your 1-year anniversary where you can no longer say that you're the new executive director.
Yeah.
And what other things can folks expect at the fundraiser? Like, is there?
So we have food, and then we
Always
have,
good.
yeah, of course. We are not saying that we have music. We have Soundscapes by Herman Pearl of Soy Sauce. We are
Okay.
really excited. It's a little different than, it's not your average DJ party kind of situation. And then, of course, we always have hands-on and making experiences. So all the studios will kind of be going. People will have an opportunity to make some things while they're here. And then the main attraction is usually the silent auction that people get pretty excited about. So we have objects from more than 150 craft artists across the country that people can bid on throughout the night.
That's amazing. Well, and you heard it, folks. If you haven't already gotten your tickets, go to Contemporary Crafts website and purchase them. Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, and we have Kate, just has not a question, just a comment. She wants to thank you for a wonderful conversation. She's so excited to see the new Rockwell collection. Thank you, Kate.
Oh,
Yeah.
last thing I should mention, what do we have coming up? It's with you, Kahmeela. We're about to launch a podcast.
Yes, I didn't know if you were ready to announce that just yet, but so I didn't say anything. But yes, Contemporary Craft is launching a podcast soon, so we're to be determined. We're looking at spring, and Rachel and myself will be co-hosting and speaking to crafts artists and the sort. And yeah, like that's right around the corner, basically.
Yeah.
So where will it be available on?
Everywhere you get your podcasts, it'll be
Okay.
available on all the spaces for podcasting. But we'll make sure that we'll tweet things out. So make sure you're watching Contemporary Crafts social medias as well as my own. And yeah, I'm excited to to get that going. We have Kathy, who says it was terrific and she enjoyed hearing and learning about Nisha and Rachel and the collection. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
So yeah, all right. So Nisha, let's throw out your socials and where you're accessible, and then Rachel, you can throw out yours, and then we're going to be coming to a close here soon.
All right, so you can find us at Knotzland on all platforms. We're most active on Instagram and Facebook, but we do have a Twitter and we'll tweet from time to time.
And that is very much the same for us. We are on all the socials, probably most active on Instagram and Facebook. And then you can find us at contemporarycraft.org. And on all those socials, it's just Contemporary Crafts. Or I think it might actually still say SCC.
I think it does.
Instagram. Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, I mean, yes, you can find me if you need to. I'm on Twitter at @the_RuggedAngel, and I'm on Instagram, RuggedAngel, and also the website ruggedangel.com. Usually if you find a Rugged Angel as spelled as one word online, that is me. So yeah, and Patricia also, I'm going to close out with Patricia is a strong advocate for contemporary craft and also the bow ties. She loves both very much. So thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Nisha. Thank you all for joining us. I had a really great time talking to you both. And I know that, this Nisha and I have, Rachel has been on my podcast and Nisha, I've been trying to get on my podcast for like 3-4 years, but we just never worked out. So
maybe it's the craft podcast.
yes, exactly. So we'll get there too. But I'm Happy to have had this opportunity to spend an hour with you both and to just chat about this amazing collection. And again, you can see it in person at the Out of Hand, the Contemporary Craft fundraiser on April 9th. Go to their website and their socials to get more information as well as tickets. And make sure you pick up your bow tie and lavalier from the Rockwell Collection. Okay, everybody have a good night.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, everyone.